Hi, I'm John Cush, Executive Editor of RheumNow.com. It is supposed to be the 11th of November 2016, when in fact it's actually a few days later. I did put up the weekend review on the 11th, but I haven't shot the video until I got here at the ACR. So it's Sunday at the ACR, and I figured I'd shoot this video. We're shooting a lot of videos, and a lot of good news is going up on the website. I hope you're going to follow it this week. I think you'll be excited. But this week, this past week, on RheumNow.com, a few interesting bits. Lancet reported last week a study which may affect some people that you treat. I don't know if you screen for H. pylori as I do and treat it as I do, but you know there are several regimens out there. They actually tested a new regimen being quadruple therapy, which is basically for 3 antibiotic therapy plus bismuth, and giving it only for 10 days as opposed to the usual 14-day 3-drug regimen. Turns out that the quadruple 10-day regimen was superior and didn't have more toxicity. Might look into that in Lancet. A study from the Taiwanese looked at the influence of hepatitis B and C on the frequency of rheumatoid arthritis and incident rheumatoid arthritis. And while the hepatitis B showed no increased risk of rheumatoid, patients with hep C had a twofold increased risk of developing rheumatoid over time. It's a very large population, as you know, a population that has a high incidence of hep B and hep C. Interesting to note then that chronic infection could result in a chronic autoimmune disease like RA. A study of 275 patients from Italy were screened with usual measures for TB prior to starting a biologic. They found that 10% of the population had a positive PPD and needed to be treated for LTBI. The rest had annual TB tests, and they found at 24 months that 13% upon retesting annually had a second positive TB test, suggesting that they had LTBI and not active TB, because they did other signs and symptoms and chest x-ray. You are obligated, if you find a second LTBI test positive when they were once previously negative, to consider the possibility this is not just anergy that's been rectified by using anti-inflammatory therapy like a TNF inhibitor, and now you're revealing their true LTBI, their true latent tuberculosis. You have to consider the fact that they may actually have new active TB, so you have to do chest x-ray, you have to do signs and symptoms, you should culture sputum, urine, whatever it is that you can get. Turns out in most studies, somewhere between 15 and 25% of patients will have evidence of new active TB, not latent TB, and they would be treated differently, wouldn't they? So think about that. Another report on immune checkpoint inhibitors, Lenny Calabrese and his group has been alerting us to this. Bing Bingham has also written about it. Drugs like nivolumab and ipilimumab being used for different kinds of cancer. These drugs, while they're very, very popular right now, do seem to have a new and unexpected incidence of inflammatory arthritis. RA-like, seronegative-like, psoriatic-like. But in the New England Journal issue, there were reports of patients with rhabdo and myocarditis in association with these. Add that to the autoimmune spectrum associated with immune checkpoint inhibitors as cancer therapy. A meta-analysis of 17 studies in IBD showed the frequency of arthritis in IBD patients, both Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, was A, 10% sacroiliitis, B, 3% ankylosing spondylitis, and C, 13% arthritis. Numbers that are actually lower than what I usually quote in my teaching. Again, a population, that's very large here, that may in fact be true. A new agent, a calcineurin inhibitor, actually being presented here at the ACR meeting, voclosporin, has been studied in phase 3 trials and is entering phase 3 trials based on successful phase 2 trials that will be reported this week at the ACR annual meeting. There's a report in the literature from PLOS online that talks about and shows some very nice pictures of RA erosions that repair. Now, when you look at them, they don't fully repair. It looks like they fill in, and they fill in over time, and the argument is made that RA erosions may revert. I continue to use this analogy because I don't believe that once you've eroded bone that you can repair it, and that means fill in the bone with matrix, have cortical bone overlying what was once fresh bone and became an erosion. That doesn't happen. And the analogy is dig a hole in the backyard, come back a year later, and guess what? The hole is not quite as big as it was when you dug the hole a year ago. It's got leaves and twigs and more dirt that got there somehow from the wind, and there's a dog laying in it and a blanket, and the hole kind of fills in with stuff. But it doesn't look like the lawn that was there before. And the same is true for RA. Be glad to discuss that with you if you like. An interesting study looked at metabolomics in patients with ankylosing spondylitis and showed that they may have some new potential biomarkers, especially when they look at metabolites or metabolism of fat, intestinal microbes, glucose metabolism, and choline. Again, shed some further light on the possibility of a microbiome involvement in these disorders. Nonetheless, very interesting. 3 other reports appeared last week. Enbrel was approved for pediatric plaque psoriasis. That's a nice addition for their patients who have that condition. Aggressive early treatment with of RA with biologics shown through an analysis by the IOP to prevent bone loss, or especially early bone loss in RA patients. And I wrote a review about the long-awaited results of the Precision study that will be presented in a few days here at the annual ACR meeting. As you know, the Precision study is a regulatory requirement by the FDA following the Vioxx hearings back in 2005 when Vioxx and Bextra were removed from the market and Celebrex stayed on the market with the provision that it would do a large safety study. That large safety study was run out of the Cleveland Clinic, headed by Dr. Steven Nissen. It's taken over 11 years and over 20,000 patients to finally get a result. We don't know the results yet. It'll be revealed on Tuesday. My guess is we're going to be disappointed, but let's wait and see. 2 more days, we'll know the results of the Precision study. That's it for this week on RheumNow. Go to the website if you want to find the links to these particular reports and more information. Follow us this week on your cell phone and tablet and desktop. You'll see some very interesting reports, a lot of tweets, a lot of news articles, a lot of videos from leaders in the field being covered all week long from Sunday through Wednesday. Have a great week. Watch what we do at the ACR.